Welcome to this week's episode of the Brownie Points podcast, covering the Browns' dominant win over the Arizona Cardinals 27-0. In our segments this week, we're going to first cover our big takeaway, which are our main impressions for that game. Then we're going to talk about the offense with a heavy focus on Deshaun Watson and his progress so far as we monitor how he's been doing coming back from his injury. And then we're going to talk about the defense and their dominant performance. And then we'll have our Brownie Points segment, which is where it's basically our award segment where we basically give out awards to the standout players on offense, to the standout players on defense. Following that, we'll round out the episode with our look ahead segment, which will be a preview of the Browns matchup against the Baltimore Ravens next week. So getting into our first segment, the big takeaway. What's your big takeaway from this Browns shutout victory?
My big takeaway is I'm a Debbie Downer, and it certainly was fine. Like, I definitely no problems with the performance as a whole from the team. But my big takeaway is a little disappointing from the offense because I don't think this was a game you were looking to win. It was a game you were looking to get right. And there's not that many of them in the NFL. You don't really have a lot of games where you expect to get right. Most teams are, solid enough. But when you're facing a team that's lacking so much on offense, right, with Clayton Tune and all that, you're going to get the ball a lot and for most of the time against your defense. And you're facing the 27th ranked defense. You're facing a really bad defense. And you're going to have a lot of opportunities against them. And when your offense has had some struggles, you want it to be a get-right game. You want it to be a game where you could step up, where your $250 million quarterback has a game more like the Titans, where you look good all game, and there's some big plays, there's some big explosive plays, more than one or two. There's 5, 6, 7 of them, a lot of nice chunk plays, 10, 12-yard plays, and you're just kind of at one of those celebratory days. The defense absolutely had a day like that. They were dominant, but the offense was sputtering a lot. And they got a turnover that helped them get one of their scores. They got the touchdown. So it just felt like it wasn't terrible, but I was hoping that the offense would have a get-right game, get confident, get ready for this down the stretch against these good teams you're going to play, and it didn't feel like a confidence-building game.
Yeah, my initial reaction, I think the initial reaction of most fans listening to that is to say, you're crazy. You can't get more get-right game than 27 points, which is an acceptable number, to 0. But the truth is, if you watch this game, if you get a little bit more in-depth onto it, you look past the box score and you use your eyes, there's a slightly different story here going on. Yes, the Browns scored 27 points. Amari Cooper had a great game, 5 grabs, 140 yards. No one else did anything. No other receiver on the team even had more than 30 yards. That's going to be a bit of a problem in the future. We need to get more production from other people. We made it work, but that's a problem. Our run game, when you watched it, it was okay. It was fine. They had their moments. They did okay, but it wasn't really much of a dominant running performance. Nobody averaged more than 2 yards a carry. There were a lot of dud carries that weren't great.
Now, to be fair, some of them, Ford did get brought down on his average because at the end of the game they did have him rushing a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do think that hurt that, but their totals weren't high either. Nobody had more than 40 yards. I think rushing. It wasn't. Point being that there wasn't so much there, and then for Deshaun Watson, you look, he had 19 and 20. We'll get more into him later, but I know what you're saying. I do happen to disagree with you still, because despite all of that, I still feel like 27-0. It doesn't get more get right than that. Even if a more in-depth look doesn't show, the team as a whole, everybody, all the individuals showing up, right? Because like I said, we really only saw Amari Cooper really step up. Deshaun Watson played okay, but even though you didn't see that, I still think that 27-0 mentally is going to feel about the same. As if they had actually done really well. I think the Browns going into next week, I think the offense is going to feel really good, and I think the defense is going to feel really good. I think as a fan, though, you do have wanted to see a little bit more. For me, my big takeaway from this game is the defense is back. Not that they were really gone, but it was a little concerning. You raised your eyebrows. You were a little concerned about them in that game against the Colts. And this game, even though it was playing against the nobody, in his first game, the level of domination you can't look past. You just can't look past that. I mean, they did absolutely nothing. What was it? I think 58 yards, of total offense, which was, I think, the third least amount of yards the Browns have given up in their history of the team. So pretty impressive, and the lowest amount of yards of any team in the NFL this year. So the defense coming out and having a performance like that was really impressive. And the Cardinals had a few drives, where they actually had a short field. And I thought, like, oh, damn, like they're going to get a field goal out of this or something. But the Browns defense held up. They would have key sacks and key moments, in that field position to take them out of field goal range. So they were incredibly impressive from this game. So that was my big takeaway. But moving into the offense, and we touched on this a few times, like even over that, because obviously it's hard not to talk about the quarterback. Deshaun Watson's performance, this is his first game back sort of, right, from his injury. What are your thoughts? How did he do?
So I think it's interesting. It's always tricky because so much of this year has been like his first game back, his first game here. He's dealing with an injury, so it's felt strange.
They said it feels like every game from Deshaun Watson this year is his first game.
Yeah, which at first I think he tried to clarify because it just sounded really brutal, which to be fair, it's also looked like it a lot. But from a different perspective, as far as what he was doing, it was interesting. So I was very happy to see him at the end of the game. I thought he played a lot better right near down the stretch in the late third, fourth quarter. He played a lot better, especially mid third and on. He really played a lot better than he did at the beginning. So at the beginning, he had a long stretch where he wasn't very good. He had one really nice throw to Cooper. Now Cooper was open, but it was over 50 yards. And any time you throw it over 50 yards on target, you get a certain amount of points for it. You just do. And he did, and he hit him. And it was a really, really big play. Now, Cooper was really open, but he hit him. And then there was a large period of time where he really did not look very good at all. And he got away with a couple where he just kind of he had good awareness, which I appreciated, to dump it off to Ford late. But nothing crazy. And it looked pretty inaccurate when he was attempting to do something. But late in the game, he definitely picked up, which makes you feel better. Because you're like, okay, well, at least at the end of the game, I saw a couple plays. I saw some slants, which I appreciated from Stefanski, from his coaching point of view. It's that one quick read, which is more in his wheelhouse, and a quick throw. I saw some velocity, which was nice. He had an absolute dime to Cooper, which I'm sure we're going to talk about. But, I mean, he had one that was just perfect downfield late in the game when you're feeling good. It was like, okay, you got to feel a little bit better, so that's good. My biggest takeaway is still the same thing that I've been saying all year, is I need to see the anticipatory throws. I need to see the throw where the receiver breaks through coverage and has it right on his hands, like right on time, because that means you saw him breaking early. You read the coverage, read the defender, read your receiver, and realized that he was going to be open and started to make the throw early. When you go back and watch highlights, go back and watch them, and you'll start noticing other quarterbacks. You'll see they're starting to throw before they're open. So the problem is you can get away with that against the Cardinals, but when you're in big games against good teams like, I don't know, the Ravens, that's not going to fly. So don't get me wrong, he wasn't asked to do a lot of that, but I do need to see at least a couple times. So overall, I think he did solid enough, but there's definitely room to grow, and definitely there's an area of unknown which will be necessary at some point this year.
Yeah, in a word, his performance was inconsistent. And again, look, I mentioned this before, how you really have to look further than just the box score in this game. Deshaun Watson was 19 of 30. He had a good passer rating. He threw for 220 yards, which is not great, but it's decent. 2 touchdowns, no picks. Looks like he had a pretty solid game if you're just looking at that. But the truth is, it was pretty inconsistent. He had great moments, like that big throw to Amari Cooper at the beginning, and then that second throw, which was a much better throw, just purely on a throw
100%.
Perspective. That was an absolute dime. But he also had a lot of moments where he was just straight up missing guys that you got to hit him, and he was throwing with almost too much velocity and inaccurately on a couple throws. I'm happy to see that his decision making, in my opinion, was pretty much on point. I really liked that he had those dump offs, and he had those which helped get up his completion percentage in that game. Sounds like a little bit cheaty, but I like to see that because he wasn't really doing that before. It did feel like he was trying to do too much, and those dump offs are really crucial. A lot of those dump offs turned into solid gains. Like Jerome Ford had a really nice game through the air in his receiving because of those little dump offs, and all of a sudden he could turn it up and get just 6 or 7 yards without having to worry about your quarterback taking a big hit. Those are important. The best quarterbacks in the league do dump offs, right? It's knowing when to do them and obviously how many and when you need to push it. But seeing dump offs from him to me is an improvement because that's something he wasn't doing, and you need to do some of it, and he did that. So I did like that I saw it. But his performance was overall inconsistent. He had moments and drives and quarters where it felt like he wasn't making throws, and he had periods where he was making his throws. But like I said, overall, I'm pleased with it because of his decision making. I think even when he was inaccurate, I think the ball was going generally to the right player. He wasn't trying to squeeze the ball into double coverage. So I think that the plays he was trying to make made sense. He just didn't always make them. But the throws, they look like the kind of throws that you would get from a guy who's coming back from injury and is rusty.
And the offense, when you look at it, it just what's frustrating is it once again, as it's felt for the last 4 weeks or so, like run game plus Amari Cooper. It doesn't feel like anyone else. Like just Cooper occasionally making some big plays and getting wide open. Now there was that one dime, so that was different. But for the most part, it's just Amari Cooper, and a lot of the plays are just him getting really open and making it easy to make the big play, and then nobody else. And Njoku has a few times, to be fair, made some plays. So I don't want to be unfair. In this game, he had the touchdown, but it didn't have a huge impact. Yeah, but it for the most part just felt way too much like Cooper plus run game, and that part has to change. And we need to see that change soon. Somebody else has to be involved. Get some more slants in, because that can get some other guys involved. Throw Cooper over top and then put Elijah Morgan on a slant. Have a one-read slant play. A lot of those will help you, get some additional yardage, make the defense be, play more honest, and cover all parts of the field. So we definitely need to see more from the receiving core. And honestly, I do wonder, Watson's got to make some kind of connection with somebody else. It can't all be on them. To have this little production, to me, speaks to someone not reading the field properly.
Yeah, it's a huge problem with this Browns offense, that Njoku does his thing when he gets the opportunity, when he has some space. Like the times he doesn't make the play are the times when the play was blown up and he wasn't going to do it. Nobody was going to do anything, right? But outside of Amari Cooper, we're getting basically zero. It's one thing to get not enough, All right, you're getting 60 yards, but I'd really like to see somebody else be able to have a 100-yard game once in a while. Or, get you, instead of getting 60 yards, maybe get some 80 yards, It's not even that. The second leading receiver on the team had 30-something yards, 33 yards or something. It's non-existent after Amari Cooper. It's not, Amari Cooper's great and the rest is bad. It's like they're not even on the field. They may as well not even be there.
Pretty expensive decoys.
Yeah. I mean, DPJ, we traded him away. We didn't really get much back from him, but whatever. That was basically just getting your money back, right? We spent a 6th-rounder to pick him, got a 6th-rounder back.
Still don't like
whatever.
That trade.
I don't like it just because of depth. I feel like if you were so unhappy with his performance, I'd rather you promote somebody else, because the receiving corps is already terrible. If you traded him and you replaced him with somebody else, that'd be a different story. But you didn't. You just traded him away.
Well, for a 6th-round pick next year, not this year.
When was the 6th-round pick?
2025. Okay. So, you're getting a 6th-round pick. That's basically worth nothing for a guy who's not making any money and is at least solid depth.
Yeah.
There's just no point in getting rid of him.
Yeah, and it's just, yeah, exactly. And like I said, if they were trading for a receiver, you'd see the vision. But trading him, it just felt like it didn't hurt us because he wasn't doing anything anyways. But it didn't do anything for us either. It just felt like a nothing. What was the point of that even?
Maybe it's time to try to get Cedric Tillman involved.
That's what I was thinking. And you know what, though? Cedric Tillman had a lot of snaps in that game, but you wouldn't know it from watching.
No, you wouldn't.
But if you look at snap count, he had a fair amount of snaps. He was on the field. He just non-existent. I don't know what it is exactly. I don't know if that Deshaun Watson needs to be doing better. I don't know if it's Kevin's fault, but there's nobody. What?
You know whose time it is?
Whose time?
I'm forgetting his name.
Hey, I don't know what you're...
Our preseason superstar.
What are you talking about? Austin Watkins.
Austin Watkins time! Yeah. It's time for Austin Watkins to put on his superhero cape and save this Browns receiving core.
Where is he right now?
He's on our practice squad.
Is he right now?
Yes. Happens to be they should call him up.
Why didn't they?
Why not? You traded DBJ. Yeah. Bring him up. He played so well. It's at this point, I think they brought up Preosh instead for special teams, but I'm why not? You're getting nothing out of your receiving core. Maybe call him up and see if he can add a little juice. Yeah. I mean, he played well. He played well with everyone. He played, I don't know. Let's give it a shot. Try something. I hate how so often people don't try things. When it feels like there's no other route, a lot of coaches still don't try things. They just don't have the guts. GMs and coaches can be like that, and it drives me nuts. You know what I mean? How often you look at a team and be like, wow, you really need some help. There's some cheap options. Just go do something. And they'll be like, no, they just stay pat, do nothing. Try something. Try it. You might as well for a low low risk type moves, and they won't even do that.
Yeah, I agree. They probably should have given Austin Watkins a chance. But that aside, at least the offense still scored 27 points. Hopefully we can see more from somebody else. Maybe they can start using Devin Njoku more like Travis Kelce, which I think is basically a necessity at this point.
Or maybe Mark Andrews might be a better example. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. All right, so transitioning into our next segment, we're going to talk about the defense and their absolutely dominating performance.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was definitely one of the best performances we've seen since 98, since they gave up 0 points in 98. I just want to point out it's often overlooked NFL season. However, it's definitely one of the best performances we've seen on a pure performance level in terms of results. I will say...
Does it get discounted because the Cardinals are playing a rookie?
Yeah, I mean, it is. Like, at the same time, it's Clayton Tune. He's not a high-up rookie. Actually, there were people talking about they saw him in practice. He just looked lost. He was not a high-picked rookie. He was not supposed to play at all. He looked like he wasn't supposed to play at all. They were on their third-string running back as well, with James Conner being out, who was really half the motor of that offense. He's really a good running back. And then, DeMarcata was out as well. So they were up to Ingram. So when you add all that together, it does matter. And like you could make an argument that the 49ers game, that defensive performance, and you could make an argument that was even better, honestly. You can maybe also say maybe not, because after Debo left, they've had a little bit of struggles. So, I mean, probably not better, but there are games where you can make certain arguments based on who they've played. But it's hard to deny less than 60 yards of total offense. So, I mean, yeah, it's great. The biggest takeaway for the defense is the difference between this year and last year, interior pressure. I mean, that was the showcase of why you go out and get Tomlinson and why you go pick up a Shelby Harris and pay attention and even the little moves and how that stuff makes a huge difference. Because what I saw all day was interior pressure, pocket moving, forcing people to get out. When Myles Garrett would get around the edge, all those plays last year, we would get around the edge, but it just wouldn't be quite enough. He would just force the quarterback to step up. It would make no difference because we had no interior pressure, and half the time, the defensive tackle would be so desperate, they'd be going around the edge too and just leave the middle wide open for the quarterback. Instead, we got interior pressure, which means sacks, which means quick throwaways, which means stop after stop after stop. Interior pressure. I know I say it a lot, but I was so tired of watching year after year after year of so much talent that went to waste. JOK having a breakout year because we have interior pressure. Finally, they took the position seriously, and the difference is just huge. So, I mean, it was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it was an awesome game. It was so much fun. Like, watching a team that just dominate an offensive line the way that the Browns did to the Cardinals is so much fun. It's one of the most fun things you can see. From a defense perspective, just sack, 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 sack. Every time they dropped back to pass, it felt like they were going to get a sack. And there were so many plays, like we were pointing out, where Myles Garrett would get this pressure from the outside, and you'd see the quarterback stepping in, and then the interior pressure just grabs him. Just Dalvin Tomlinson or Shelby just reaches out, snags him, right? It was an incredibly dominant performance from the Browns defense. I think the last time they got a shutout was, I think, in 2007. Standout players all over the place. It wasn't just, I mean, the defensive line obviously was dominant, which helped out the secondary, but the secondary played very well too. Denzel Ward was great. Grant Delpit was great. MJ Emerson was great. Juan Thornhill was solid. JOK was solid. Taki was solid. Everybody was like solid or great in that game across the entire defense. Hopefully they can repeat that against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, who's generally given us a lot of trouble, especially with that interior and being disciplined in the gaps. We'll talk about that during our preview segment. But first, let's talk about the Brownie Points segment. This is our signature segment. If you're a first-time listener, this is where we award brownie points to the standout players on offense, and we award brownie points to the standout players on defense. As it would work in real life, the more brownie points you get, the better your performance. We give out 3, 2, and 1 brownie point to offense, and again on defense. Levi, why don't you run us through your standout players? Who are you giving your brownie points to from this performance on offense?
Yeah, so on offense, we start with Amari Cooper because he's kind of our Nick Chubb now. On offense, just every game, he just finds ways to make plays. And again, Watson found him for a dime. But the rest of the plays was just Cooper being Cooper and him finding ways to get open. And don't get me wrong, he hauled it in, but that one was actually a really great throw that helped him get open. But the rest of the game, it was him. He had a really, really big it was a 59-yard catch, which was just him getting really open for a while. Just Cooper finding ways and running his routes the way he does and being consistent the way he is, which has just been everything for this offense this year. So he deserves it, and it's just clear to me that he deserves it. So he gets it. Moving on to 2 brownie points is where it gets, I suppose, a little dicier. Overall, I'm actually going to give it to Ford. I think the running game overall was solid. I think there were moments where he had some nice plays, some good decision-making. I think he was around when it was necessary, made some nice plays out of the backfield. And even in the run game, he did get hurt a little bit with those runs at the end of the game, but I thought there were several moments where he showed some really good decision-making, where he just made a nice little shift midway through a run, recognizing where the gap and the holes were. So he gets 2 brownie points for me. I thought it was a nice comeback game off the injury. So I know he technically was around for last game, but he wasn't really. And 1 brownie point, I am going to give it to Deshaun Watson. Call it maybe a little more hope than anything else. But hey, he did show up at the end of the game. He did, again, have a dime to Cooper, which I would say is the best throw as a Brown so far, and I don't think it's particularly close. That over to the shoulder was just perfect. And he finished strong. So the combination of that, I will give him 1 brownie point, and that completes my brownie points for the offense.
All right, cool. I mean, mine are not really that different, to be completely honest. Again, there were only so many standouts from the offense, even though, again, 27 points was not that bad, but there were only so many standouts. 3 brownie points, I also got Amari Cooper. Again, he has been basically the only wide receiver, not just a great receiver, but pretty much the only wide receiver on the Browns offense. He had a great game. He had that awesome catch that he had later in the game from Deshaun Watson. At 2 brownie points, I have Wyatt Teller. We don't often give a lot of love to the offensive linemen, but when they have their moments, I like to give it to them, especially in games like this where there's less from your skill position players. So there's more room, I think, to give it to something a little bit less conventional. But yes, I want to give Wyatt Teller a shout out. He didn't give up any pressures, didn't give up any sacks. He was very stout on that interior. He did a good job getting to the second level when we were trying to run the ball. We had a couple of those interesting, wildcat type plays. I think he did a good job blocking on those plays. At 1 brownie point, I have Deshaun Watson. He was up and down. He was a little consistent, but ultimately he was there for the team when they needed him the most. He had that incredible throw to Amari Cooper, an absolute dime to Amari Cooper late in the game. But Amari Cooper didn't have to slow down even 1% on that play. He caught him, the definition of catching your player in stride, maximizing every yard from that play. If that was underthrown, it probably would have been a pick. Incredible throw from him. Those are the kind of flashes that gets you excited, and hopefully he can cut down on some of those rusty plays where he was just straight up missing dudes. So hopefully we can cut down on those, but overall, a decent performance. I think it's a performance that gives you some hope as a Browns fan, so I wanted to give him 1 brownie point for that. And that will conclude our brownie point accolades that we're giving out for the offense. Now, getting into the defense is where it gets tricky, in a good way, but it does get a little bit dicier. Not dicier, I should say. Just a little bit trickier as far as who you want to reward, because there were so many standout players. Who do you have at 3, 2, and 1 brownie point for the Browns defense?
Yeah, and that's that dilemma of on one hand, you have trouble giving out points. It can either be because you don't have enough standouts or too many. In defense, we get the good side. So 3, I'm giving it to Shelby Harris. He's been solid all year, and he's been really nice to have, which is what you expect from a guy like Shelby Harris, which is why I loved having him. But he really showed up. He had 2 big sacks. He had a strip sack, which, Shelby, big man, getting moving. I love the just general pass rush, the general penetration from this interior pass rush this game. Shelby Harris was phenomenal all over that backfield. And speaking of interior pass rush, the 2 brownie points I give to Dalvin Tomlinson, who also had a really great game. He had a sack. He was involved. He was constantly in the backfield, giving people problems, creating issues, and making it difficult to ignore Myles Garrett. And if you ignore Myles Garrett, you're getting hit somewhere else. So he was phenomenal, big part of keeping that run game completely contained. And again, making the quarterback constantly uncomfortable, which is what's so great about interior pressure. It's whenever they're getting pressure, sometimes they don't register as a QB pressure, but because that pocket just moved in on them, it suddenly makes them very uncomfortable. That is a huge benefit. Making a quarterback, particularly a rookie, but even guys like Tom Brady, if you can make them consistently a little less comfortable, always a little uncomfortable, it's a big difference, because that one throw where you're off more than you should could be the difference between completing your third down and not, and getting off the field. Now, in this case, it was just, hey, we get a shutout, but it was fun. And lastly, one brownie point, I'm going to give it to Grant Delpit. He's been having himself a really good year this year. He had a couple of nice tackles, a couple of nice plays. He's really showed himself to be our starting free safety, which is awesome to see from a second-round pick. Finally feel like his breakout year, him and JOK are having good seasons, been a big part of it, and he definitely deserved it. So those are my brownie points for the defense.
Yeah, I think those are great brownie points. I mean, you can't disagree really with anybody because there are so many standouts. But I think that, I just want to touch really quickly on that last thing that you were saying about Grant Delpit. I think players like Grant Delpit and JOK highlight just how crucial somebody like Jim Schwartz really is for this defense.
100%.
Grant Delpit, a dude who's got tons of talent, everybody knew it, just didn't pop. Now he is. JOK, tons of talent, just didn't quite pop. Not that he was terrible, but he just didn't really pop. Now he is. That is what you want from your defensive coordinator to maximize your players. But for me to run through my list, I have at 3 brownie points, I'm giving it to Dalvin Tomlinson. I think that I do think he was like a little bit better than Shelby Harris was, even though Shelby did have that strip sack. I think they both had 2 sacks, but one of Shelby's was the defense just not paying attention to him at all, and he just was able to get a free ride.
The offense.
Huh? We're saying when Shelby Harris came in, the Cardinals offense just split basically for him, and he was able to.
You said the defense wasn't paying attention.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, he was paying attention. But the offense just kind of split, and then he was able to make an easy sack. Not to say that he didn't play well. We're just, like I said, we're splitting hairs in this game because there were so many standouts. So Shelby Harris was a great player for me. I'm just giving it to Dalvin Tomlinson at 3 brownie points, and then at 2 brownie points is where I'm giving it to Shelby Harris again, just minute stuff. And then at 1 brownie point, I'm giving it to Grant Delpit. I'm not going to get too far because, again, you touched on him. I touched on him very briefly, but Grant Delpit had another great game. He popped again. He had a couple moments we really noticed him and his talent and his athleticism. He was great in coverage. Just some other honorable mentions. Denzel Ward was another honorable mention. Myles Garrett had a great game again. Myles Garrett didn't have as much flashy sacks as Dalvin Tomlinson and Shelby Harris did, interestingly, but Myles Garrett did have a lot of plays where he clearly wanted the line of scrimmage, and he had that breakdown at the edge that forced the quarterback up and into the arms of Shelby Harris and Dalvin Tomlinson. So Myles Garrett almost had the assist on a lot of those sacks, so Myles Garrett deserves, I think, a shout-out.
Quick shout-out
but
to
I'm not giving him
Sione.
the brownie point because he didn't get to play at the end of it.
Absolutely. Quick shout out to Sione Takitaki with his second pick of his career, and a really nice pick.
Yeah, and he was pretty good for the rest of the game too. Again, everybody was. Now, part of that again, how great was the Cardinals' offense? Who knows? But who cares? We're still going to enjoy it. But yeah, that's going to wrap up our brownie point segment. It was a great performance. The Browns were awesome on defense. The offense left something to be desired, but overall there were still bright spots. There's still some hope, and we'll see how they do. Looking ahead to the Baltimore Ravens. That's going to be a huge game. The Browns are only 1 back in the loss column. So it's a pretty significant game, as division games always are. What are your predictions for this game? How do you see it going?
I have to be honest, I don't feel great. This is scary because the Ravens have been playing at a level we have not seen in a long time. They've been playing the best in the NFL over the last month for certain. It really hasn't been close. You could argue they've had the best season of anyone so far. Even though the Eagles only have 1 loss, they have 2. Eagles have had a bunch of close games. The Ravens have blown the doors off of the Lions and the Seahawks in the last month. 2 of some of the better teams in the NFL. Not schlubs. People have shown up and played well. The Seahawks only had 2 losses coming in. The Lions were undefeated. Had 1 loss. I'm sorry. 1 loss. And the Lions had 1 loss coming into the Ravens and looked good. And they've looked good all year. They beat the Chiefs. I know it's without Kelsey, but still. And they've looked good all year. Dominated by the Ravens. That is a scary look. Now, when you look at them, we played them last time. We ended up losing pretty badly. A lot of this feels like it comes down to the offense. The defense did okay. The tricky question will be, can you contain Mark Andrews? Because JOK is necessary to contain Lamar. And he actually did a pretty good job of it. Lamar did not go crazy on us. He keeps him from going nuts on the run game. But when you take him out of the coverage game, who can keep Mark Andrews from becoming that crucial focus point for the offense that allows them to flow? So that's a big one. If I have to get into it directly, I have to be honest. It's a big game. And I think the defense will be solid, but over time, I think our offense is going to cause too many problems for them. I think we won't be able to be consistent. We'll give up too much time. I think there'll probably be a turnover in the game. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but my guess is it's probably going to be more in the range of like 28 to 14 or 28-17 in the late 17. I got to be honest. I don't think it's going to be that close. I really hope I'm wrong, but the way things have been going lately, defense has been solid, but a little inconsistent and not always there. And to be fair, when you're throwing on the field as offense, I think they might be. That happens. And again, the offense just hasn't really shown an ability to, penetrate a tough defense yet. So I'm a little worried about this one.
Yeah, and historically, the Browns are just not very good against the Ravens. That's the truth. Historically, the Browns do not do a great job shutting down Lamar Jackson. You'd think they would do better because they're divisional rivals, and you're supposed to know them better than anybody. But the Browns generally don't do a great job with him. Either he burns us with his legs, or they're able to contain him with his legs. But then because we have to bring the linebackers in, he's able to make those reads and make those passes and break down our secondary. We've already played him once this year. So the best predictor of the future is the past. The past was terrible. So looking ahead to this game, it's hard to really feel like the Browns. It's hard to feel like they can win. And when I was thinking about it then, I'm thinking about it again, and I'm trying to see the path. What's the avenue for success for the Browns in this game? But the truth is, I don't know that I really see it. I don't foresee the Browns defense, even though they're really good. I don't foresee the Browns defense doing better against the Ravens offense than the Ravens defense will likely do against our offense. Now, if Deshaun Watson decides that today is the day, that could change things. Because obviously he has that dynamism in him somewhere, we're told. So I think if the Browns are going to win this game, I think we're going to have to see a spectacular performance from Deshaun Watson. Not 220 yards, 19 of 30. Not that. Not the Titans game. Texans, Deshaun Watson. That's Texans, Deshaun Watson when he threw 4,800 yards. That's what we need from Deshaun Watson, I think, to win this game, because the Ravens are a really good team. The Browns, I think, are, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I think the Browns are going to struggle offensively. I think the lack of not having guys behind Amari Cooper is going to be a problem against the better defense, because they're going to focus more on Amari Cooper, and who knows? We'll see what happens. But I don't think it's going to be a great day to be a Browns fan. I think there is a path to success, like I said already before, but I think they're going to struggle. I do think that the Ravens pull out this win 24-17. So I think I have it a little bit closer than yours, but
not much.
Yeah, and that 7 points, I don't know how close that 7 points is really going to be. I see the Browns like getting that later on. Yeah. I don't see the offense going.
And you got to be careful because the Steelers look like they're not amazing, but they're well coached, and you've seen it. They've been pulling out a lot of games lately, finding ways to win, and the Bengals have come on hot lately. They just won a big game.
Yeah, I think I saw that if the playoffs started today, I think the Browns would have. Sorry, I think the AFC North would have all 4 teams qualify for the playoffs, I believe.
Yeah, so
that's how insane this division is right now. Everybody is 2 games above 500.
There's not cupcakes waiting for you, so you got to buckle down and get some stuff done.
Yeah, because we didn't at the first half of the season.
Yeah.
Well, not half, but we're almost there. Yeah. They didn't get it done there, so they got to get it done in the second half. We've got to get these divisional wins. But I mean, technically we could still get in on the wild card, but you don't want to have to rely on something like that. But if the Browns win this game against the Ravens, obviously it's huge implications. It's another divisional win, in their tally, but then also they're the number 1 team in our division. So a win against them could see the Browns with a very realistic path to the top of the division, because there's not much else after that. We have a pretty favorable string of games right now. But again, like you're saying, with the Steelers is difficult to predict because Mike Tomlin always gets the most out of his players. But yeah, that's our predictions for the Browns game versus the Ravens. Hopefully we're wrong. We've certainly been wrong in the past. Hopefully we'll be very wrong again, and we can have another Happy Victory Monday next week. For as it is, thank you for listening. If you're interested, give us a follow on Twitter at Brownie Points 99. We run a lot of polls on there and a lot of opportunities for you to interact, share your opinion, get your voice heard, and maybe we'll talk about something that you brought up during the next week's episode of the podcast. But for now, thank you for listening.
Have a great week.